The elderly Iconian lies motionless among the ruins, her once vibrant scales now dull and lifeless. Human soldier Sean Ward approaches cautiously, his rifle trained on the alien figure. He's under strict orders to eliminate any encounters, but something gives him pause. Distant explosions echo across the war-torn landscape of the remote Iconian planet. Sean's reconnaissance team scattered hours ago, leaving him alone in this desolate outpost. The air hangs heavy with acrid smoke and the lingering stench of plasma fire. Sean inches closer, his combat boots crunching on debris. The Iconian's eyes flutter open, revealing a depth of intelligence that catches Sean off guard. She tries to speak but manages only a weak rasp. "Easy there," Sean says, lowering his weapon. He kneels beside her, keenly aware that this decision could cost him everything. "I'm Sean. What's your name?" "Astra," she manages, her voice barely above a whisper. Sean's mind races. The Iconians are humanity's bitter enemies in this resource war, their advanced technology making them formidable foes. Yet here lies one of their own, discarded and left for dead. He reaches for his field kit, extracting a medical scanner. "You're injured. Let me help." Astra's eyes widen in surprise. "Why would you assist me, human? I am worthless to my people now." Sean works quickly, applying emergency treatments to her wounds. "Age doesn't determine worth where I come from." As he tends to her injuries, Astra reveals her past as a respected Iconian scientist. She speaks of her society's rigid age-based hierarchy, a system that cast her aside despite her vast knowledge. "I can help you," Astra says, her voice growing stronger. "I know things about our defenses, our strategies, information that could turn the tide of this war." Sean's heart races. This could be the advantage humanity desperately needs. But accepting her help means betraying his orders, risking court-martial or worse. In the distance, the whine of Iconian patrol ships grows louder. Sean knows they're searching for survivors and time is running out. "We need to move," he says, helping Astra to her feet. "Can you walk?" She nods weakly, leaning on him for support. As they make their way through the ruins, Astra whispers of a deeper conspiracy, hinting at lies and manipulation on both sides of the conflict. Sean's mind reels. If what she's saying is true, everything he thought he knew about this war could be wrong. But he has no time to dwell on it now. They need to find a way off this planet, and fast. As they duck behind a fallen pillar to avoid a passing patrol, Sean realizes the enormity of his choice. He's not just saving an alien's life, he's potentially reshaping the future of both species. With enemies closing in and the fate of two civilizations hanging in the balance, Sean and Astra forge an unlikely alliance. Their journey is just beginning, but it's already clear that nothing will ever be the same. Sean and Astra crouch behind the fallen pillar, their breath coming in short gasps as the Iconian patrol passed by. The moment the coast was clear, they resumed their perilous journey through the ruins. "There's an underground research facility nearby," Astra whispered, her voice strained with effort. "If we can reach it, we might find a way off this planet." Sean nodded, supporting the elderly Iconian as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Suddenly, a figure darted out from behind a crumbling wall, brandishing a weapon. Sean raised his rifle instinctively, but Astra's hand on his arm stopped him. "Lyra!" Astra called out, her voice a mix of relief and urgency. The young Iconian female lowered her weapon, her eyes widening in recognition. "Professor Astra, you're alive." Her gaze hardened as it fell on Sean. "Why are you with this human?" Astra stepped forward, wincing slightly. "He saved my life, Lyra. We need to trust him if we want to survive." Lyra hesitated, her scaled fingers tightening on her weapon. Sean held his breath, acutely aware of how precarious their situation was. After a tense moment, Lyra lowered her gun. "Fine," she said, her voice infused with suspicion. "But I'm watching you, human." With Lyra's reluctant agreement, the trio made their way to the hidden entrance of the underground bunker. As they descended into the dimly lit facility, Sean's eyes widened at the sight of advanced Iconian technology lining the walls. "What is this place?" he asked, unable to hide his awe. Astra's eyes gleamed with a hint of pride. "This was my life's work before they cast me aside. And there, she pointed to a sleek vessel unlike anything Sean had ever seen, is our ticket out of here. As they approached the ship, Sean's comm unit crackled to life. Colonel Marcus Braxton's voice cut through the static, harsh and commanding. Ward, report your status immediately. You are to terminate any Iconian survivors and return to base. That's an order, soldier. Sean's hand hovered over the comm unit, his mind racing. He looked at Astra, who had shown him kindness and offered invaluable information. He glanced at Lyra, whose initial hostility had given way to a wary curiosity. In that moment, he made his decision. I'm sorry, sir, he said, switching off the comm unit, but I can't follow that order. Lyra's eyes widened in surprise while Astra nodded approvingly. They turned their attention to the ship, working quickly to prepare it for launch. As Sean assisted with the preparations, he couldn't help but notice Lyra's exceptional skill with the complex systems. Her fingers flew over the controls with a speed and precision that seemed almost superhuman. Astra, noticing Sean's amazement, leaned in close. Lyra is unspecial, she whispered. She's part of a program even I wasn't fully aware of. A genetically engineered prodigy, created to be the perfect Iconian. Before Sean could process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the facility. Astra's face paled. They've found us. We need to leave now. They scrambled into the ship, the sound of heavy footsteps echoing through the bunker. As Sean took the pilot's seat, he heard a voice that sent chills down his spine. Find them! Commander Zorn's guttural roar reverberated through the chamber. I want those traitors brought to me alive. Sean's fingers flew over the unfamiliar controls, desperately trying to activate the ship's systems. Lyra pushed him aside, her hands a blur as she interfaced with the technology. Move, she hissed. I can do this faster. The ship hummed to life just as Zorn's troops burst into the hangar. Sean held his breath as Lyra activated the cloaking device, causing the energy signatures to vanish. The Iconian soldiers halted in confusion, their weapons sweeping the now empty space where the ship had been. With agonizing slowness, Sean guided the cloaked vessel out of the bunker and into the war-torn skies of the Iconian planet. As they broke through the atmosphere, the vastness of space opened up before them, dotted with the ominous shapes of both human and Iconian warships. In the cramped confines of the ship, Sean became acutely aware of Lyra's presence beside him. Her alien features, so different from his own, held an undeniable allure. He caught her glancing at him with a mixture of curiosity and something else he couldn't quite identify. Astra watched this unspoken exchange with keen interest. Perhaps, she mused, her voice barely audible, this unexpected connection could be the key to ending this senseless war. As they drifted through space, hidden from both sides of the conflict, Sean realized the enormity of their situation. They were fugitives now, with limited resources and nowhere to go. Yet, as he looked at his unlikely companions, he felt a glimmer of hope. So, he said, breaking the tense silence, where do we go from here? Astra's eyes gleamed with drive. I have a plan, she began, one that could change everything. But first, we need to... I have a plan, Astra began, her eyes gleaming with commitment. But first, we need to find a safe place to regroup and recharge our ship. Sean nodded, his hands steady on the unfamiliar controls. As they journeyed through the vastness of space, the stolen Iconian vessel began to show signs of strain. Warning lights flickered on the control panel, indicating rapidly depleting power reserves. The cloaking technology is draining our energy faster than anticipated, Lyra reported, her fingers dancing across the ship's interface. We need to find a place to land soon, or we'll be visible to every patrol in the sector. Sean's mind raced, considering their limited options. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Nuta, he said, turning to his companions. It's a neutral trading outpost. They have a strict non-intervention policy in galactic conflicts. We might be able to blend in there. Astra nodded approvingly. A wise choice, Sean. Nutera's diverse population could provide the cover we need. As they approached the outpost, a new challenge emerged. The ship's sensors detected a complex security system designed to prevent military vessels from entering. Sean gritted his teeth, realizing they would have to navigate through a treacherous asteroid field surrounding the outpost. Lyra, can you mask our weapon signatures? Sean asked, his eyes fixed on the approaching field of space debris. I'll try, she replied, her voice tense with concentration. But it'll take all my focus. You'll have to get us through that mess. Sean took a deep breath, his hands tightening on the controls. Here goes nothing. The ship plunged into the asteroid field, massive chunks of rock looming in every direction. Sean's world narrowed to the viewport in the ship's sensors, his reactions honed by years of combat training. He weaved the vessel through impossibly tight gaps, the hull scraping against stone more than once. Beside him, Lyra worked furiously to conceal their true nature from Nutera's watchful eyes. Astra gripped her seat, her ancient eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. After what felt like hours but was merely minutes, they emerged from the asteroid field. The gleaming structures of Nutera floated before them, a haven in the emptiness of space. We made it, Sean breathed, allowing himself a small smile. Their relief was short-lived. As they approached the docking bay, a stern voice crackled over the comm system. Unidentified vessel, you are not cleared for entry. State your purpose and submit to a full scan. Sean exchanged worried glances with his companions. A full scan would reveal their ship's true nature in seconds. Quick thinking time, Astra murmured. We need a disguise. Lyra's eyes lit up. The holographic technology in the ship's systems. We could use it to alter our appearances. Working swiftly, they salvaged the necessary components. Within minutes, Astra and Lyra shimmered, their Iconian features replaced by the appearance of a less recognizable alien species. Sean, playing the role of their human guide, responded to the outpost's hails with a carefully crafted story of traders seeking repairs. To their relief, the ruse worked. They were granted permission to dock, the security officer's voice now tinged with boredom rather than suspicion. As they stepped out of the ship and into the bustling docking bay of Nutera, Sean felt a rush of sensory overload. The air was thick with the sense of a dozen different alien cuisines, mingling with the acrid smell of ship exhaust. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors moved through the crowded space, their languages creating a cacophony of sound. We need to find a secure location, Astra whispered, her eyes darting nervously around the bay. Somewhere to rest and plan our next move. As they made their way through the crowded corridors of the outpost, Sean couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. His suspicions were confirmed when a hooded figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking their path. You three seem a bit lost, the figure said, lowering his hood to reveal a face covered in intricate patterns. Perhaps I can be of assistance. The name's Zarek, and information is my trade. Sean tensed, ready for a fight, but Astra placed a restraining hand on his arm. What kind of assistance do you offer, Zarek? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Zarek's eyes gleamed with interest. Shelter, for one, and my network of contacts throughout the galaxy. All I ask in return is information about the ongoing conflict between humans and Iconians, perhaps? Astra considered for a moment, then nodded slowly. We may have some insights to share. Lead the way, Zarek. As they followed the information broker through winding back alleys, Sean couldn't help but notice how close Lyra stayed to him. Her presence, both familiar and alien, sent a confusing mix of emotions through him. Zarek led them to a nondescript building, ushering them inside a small but well-equipped safe house. Make yourselves comfortable, he said with a grin. I have a feeling we have much to discuss. As the door closed behind them, Sean realized they had taken their first step into a much larger and more dangerous game. The relative safety of Nutera was just an illusion. Their true challenges were only beginning. Their true challenges were only just starting to unfold. As Zarek settled into a chair across from them, Sean couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far more complex than they had anticipated. He exchanged a glance with Lyra, noting the tension in her posture. Now then, Zarek said, leaning forward with a predatory grin, let's talk about what you really came here for. Astra cleared her throat. We're seeking information about a group known as the Consortium. Have you heard of them? Zarek's eyes glinted with interest. The Consortium? Now that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Dangerous territory you're treading into, my friends. Sean felt a chill run down his spine. What do you know about them? I know they're not the kind of people you want to cross, Zarek replied, his voice low. But I also know that information about them could be valuable. What exactly are you looking for? Astra leaned forward, her holographic disguise flickering slightly. Evidence. Proof of their existence and their role in the human-Iconian conflict. Zarak nodded slowly. I might be able to help you with that, but it won't be easy, and it certainly won't be cheap. As they negotiated terms with Zarek, Sean's mind raced. They needed to gather evidence, but they also needed to be careful. One wrong move could expose them to both human and Iconian forces. After coming to an agreement with Zarek, the trio decided to split up to cover more ground. Sean and Lyra would pose as a couple, blending in with Nutera's diverse population while searching for information. Astra, with her scientific expertise, would attempt to hack into the outpost's central database. As Sean and Lyra made their way through Nutera's bustling market district, they kept their eyes and ears open for any mention of the consortium. Their arms were linked, their bodies close as they navigated the crowded streets. You're a surprisingly good actor, Lyra murmured, her breath warm against Sean's ear. Sean felt a flutter in his stomach at her proximity. Who says I'm acting? He replied with a small smile. Their playful banter was interrupted by the sound of familiar voices. Sean tensed as he spotted a human patrol making its way through the crowd. Without thinking, he pulled Lyra into a narrow alleyway, pressing her against the wall as the patrol passed by. For a moment they stood frozen, their bodies flush against each other. Sean could feel Lyra's heart racing, matching the rapid beat of his own. Their eyes met, and suddenly the pretense of their relationship felt all too real. Lyra's hand came up to cup Sean's face, her touch sending electricity through his skin. Sean, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He leaned in, unable to resist the pull between them. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, years of tension and conflict melting away in an instant. For a moment there was no war, no consortium, just the two of them, lost in each other. The moment was shattered by the chirp of Sean's communicator. They broke apart, breathing heavily, as Astra's voice came through. Sean, Lyra, I found something. Meet me at the entrance to the old mining facility on the lower levels. Hurry. As they made their way to the rendezvous point, Sean and Lyra exchanged loaded glances. There would be time to address what had happened between them later. For now, they had a mission to complete. They found Astra waiting for them at the entrance to a dilapidated mining facility. Her eyes were bright with excitement. I've uncovered communications that point to a secret consortium base hidden within this facility. If we can infiltrate it, we might find the evidence we need. The trio made their way into the facility, navigating through a maze of derelict machinery and collapsed tunnels. The air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of oxidized metal. Sean took point, his military training kicking in as he led them deeper into the complex. After what felt like hours of careful navigation, they stumbled upon a hidden door, seamlessly integrated into the rocky wall. Lyra's enhanced abilities allowed her to quickly bypass the security measures, and they found themselves in a state-of-the-art command center. This is it, Astra breathed, her eyes wide as she took in the advanced technology surrounding them. We found their base. As Astra began downloading data from the central computer, Sean and Lyra kept watch. The tension between them was palpable, their earlier kiss hanging unspoken in the air. Suddenly, the door they had entered through hissed open. Sean whirled around, his hand going to his weapon, only to freeze at the sight of a familiar face. Zarek stood in the doorway, a smug smile on his face, and a high-tech weapon in his hand. Well done, he said, his voice dripping with false praise. You've led me right to the evidence I've been searching for. Sean's heart sank as he realized the truth. They'd been played from the start. Zarek's finger hovered over a button on his wrist device. I'm afraid this is where your journey ends. You see, I'm not just an information broker. I'm a high-ranking consortium agent, and you've just handed me everything I need to ensure our continued dominance. With a cruel smile, Zarek pressed the button. Alarms blared throughout the facility as security systems activated, trapping Sean, Lyra, and Astra in the command center. Goodbye, Zarek said, backing out of the room. I'd say it's been a pleasure, but, well, You understand. As the door sealed shut behind Zarek, Sean turned to his companions. Lyra's face was set in purpose, while Astra continued to work furiously at the computer terminal. We need to find a way out of here, Sean said, his mind racing. And fast. I have a feeling we're about to have company. In the distance, they could hear the sound of approaching footsteps. Both human and Iconian strike teams converging on their location. They were trapped, with precious little time to escape, and even less to convince their would-be captors of the truth. Shukun met Lyra's eyes, seeing his own perseverance mirrored there. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The fate of two species and the truth about the consortium hung in the balance, and the clock was ticking. Ticking. They needed a plan, and fast. We can't let this evidence fall into the wrong hands, Sean said, his mind racing. But we also can't let ourselves be captured. We need to... The facility shuddered, cutting Sean off mid-sentence. A new alarm blared, its pitch higher and more urgent than before. Self-destruct sequence initiated, an emotionless voice announced over the facility's speakers. 15 minutes until detonation. Sean and Lyra exchanged a look of perseverance. In that moment, they both knew what they had to do. Astra, Sean said, turning to the ancient Iconian, you need to get out of here with that data. It's too important to lose. Astra's eyes widened. But what about you two? We're staying, Lyra said, her voice firm. Someone needs to convince the human and Iconian forces of the truth. We're the only ones who can do it. Astra hesitated, but the sound of approaching footsteps made the decision for her. With a nod, she downloaded the last of the data and sprinted for the exit. As Astra's footsteps faded, Sean and Lyra positioned themselves on either side of the door. Moments later, it burst open, revealing Commander Zorn of the human forces and Colonel Braxton of the Iconians, each flanked by their respective troops. Weapons down, Sean shouted, raising his hands. We're not your enemies. We have proof of who the real threat is, Lyra added, her holographic disguise flickering off to reveal her true Iconian form. Zorn and Braxton hesitated, their weapons still trained on Sean and Lyra. You have exactly 1 minute to explain yourselves? Braxton growled. Sean nodded, then sprinted to the central control system. His fingers flew over the keyboard, bringing up real-time data streams on the large display screens. Look, he said, pointing to the screens. These are consortium agents, actively sabotaging both human and Iconian operations across the galaxy. They've been playing us against each other this whole time. Zorn's eyes narrowed as he scanned the data. This could be fabricated. It's not, Lyra insisted. She stepped forward, her Iconian implants glowing as she interfaced directly with the system. I can verify the authenticity of this data. It's real, and it's happening right now. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The self-destruct countdown continued its relentless march. Even if this is true, Braxton said, this facility is set to blow in less than 10 minutes. We need to evacuate. No, Sean argued. If we let this place be destroyed, we lose our best chance at exposing the consortium. We need to work together to stop it. Zorn and Braxton exchanged a wary glance. Then to Sean's relief, they both nodded. What's the plan? Zorn asked. Lyra, can you interface with the consortium systems and try to override the self-destruct? Sean asked. Lyra nodded, her expression tight with concentration as she connected more deeply with the facility's network. Commander Zorn, Colonel Braxton, Sean continued, we need your troops to find and disarm any explosive charges throughout the facility. We don't know if the self-destruct is purely digital or if there are physical components. The two leaders quickly relayed orders to their soldiers. Human and Iconian troops, who moments ago had been ready to kill each other, now worked side by side, searching for hidden explosives. Sean coordinated the efforts, directing teams based on the facility schematics displayed on the screens. The countdown ticked past 5 minutes remaining. I've almost got it, Lyra called out, her voice strained. The system's fighting back, but I think I can. With 30 seconds left on the clock, Lyra let out a triumphant cry. The alarms fell silent, and the countdown froze. Self-destruct sequence aborted, the facility's AI announced. A cheer went up from the gathered troops, but it quickly turned to concern as Lyra collapsed. Sean rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms. Lyra? Lyra, can you hear me? Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Sean, did we do it? Yeah, we did it, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You did it. As Lyra regained her strength, Sean became aware of the silence in the room. He looked up to see both human and Iconian soldiers watching them, their expressions a mix of curiosity and uncertainty. The moment was broken by the crackle of Astra's voice over the comm system. Sean, Lyra, can you hear me? I have critical information. Sean helped Lyra to her feet as Zorn patched Astra's transmission through to the main screen. Astra's face appeared, her expression grave. A massive consortium fleet has been detected leaving a nearby nebula, she reported. They're heading straight for Nuta. I believe they intend to destroy all evidence of their existence, including this facility and everyone in it. The room erupted in a flurry of activity as Zorn and Braxton began issuing orders to their respective forces. Sean turned to Lyra, his mind already formulating a plan. We need to unite the human and Iconian forces on Nuta, he said. It's our only chance against a fleet that size. Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with purpose. I can help bridge the communication gap between our species. We've already shown what we can accomplish when we work together. As they began to outline their strategy to Zorn and Braxton, Sean felt a surge of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in years, he believed that peace between humans and Iconians might actually be possible. The alliance was fragile, born of necessity and shared danger. But as Sean looked at Lyra, he knew that it was built on something stronger, the connection between two individuals who had crossed the divide between their species. Now they had to turn that connection into a shield strong enough to protect Nuta from the coming storm. Storm. The combined human and Iconian forces on Nuta would need to stand united against this threat. As alarms blared throughout the facility, Sean and Lyra sprinted towards the hangar bay. They had mere minutes to prepare for the impending assault. We need something fast and stealthy, Sean said, his eyes scanning the array of vessels before them. Lyra nodded, her gaze settling on a sleek fighter in the corner. There, that's a hybrid prototype, combined human and Iconian tech. It's perfect. They rushed to the ship, their movements perfectly in sync. As they approached, the cockpit opened, recognizing their hybrid DNA signatures. Sean slid into the pilot's seat while Lyra took the co-pilot's position. The fighter hummed to life, its systems a seamless blend of both species' technologies. Sean's hands danced over the controls, familiarizing himself with the unique interface. Lyra, can you establish a link with the ship's AI? Sean asked, his voice tense with concentration. Lyra closed her eyes, her implants glowing as she connected with the vessel systems. Link established. We have full access to all capabilities. As they prepared for takeoff, Commander Zorn's voice crackled over the comms. Sean, Lyra, we're scrambling all available fighters to meet the consortium fleet. Your mission is to exploit any weakness you can find in their defenses. We're counting on you. Understood, Commander, Sean replied. We won't let you down. The hangar bay door slid open, revealing the chaotic scene outside. Fighters from both species were launching, forming a united front against the approaching consortium armada. Sean engaged the engines, and their hybrid fighter shot out of the hangar. The vessel moved with incredible agility, responding to Sean's commands as if it were an extension of his own body. As they ascended through Nutera's atmosphere, the scale of the threat became apparent. The consortium fleet was vast, its ships forming a dark cloud that blotted out the stars. There, Lyra said, pointing to a colossal vessel at the center of the formation. That must be their flagship. If we can take it out, we might have a chance. Sean nodded, plotting a course through the enemy formation. The hybrid fighter stealth systems engaged, rendering them nearly invisible to the consortium sensors. They weaved through the outer defenses, Sean's piloting skills pushed to their limits as they dodged weapons fire and narrowly avoided collisions. Lyra's enhanced senses allowed her to predict enemy movements, calling out warnings and opportunities that Sean acted on instinctively. As they approached the flagship, a massive energy barrier shimmered into view, surrounding the enormous vessel. Sean, wait, Lyra said, her voice urgent. She interfaced deeper with their ship's systems, analyzing the barrier. This energy field, it's not just a shield. It's the source of the consortium's control over their fleet. If we can bring it down, we might be able to turn the tide of the battle. Sean's mind raced, considering their options. Can we disable it from here? Lyra shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. No, it's too complex. The controls must be inside the flagship itself. One of us needs to go in. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Sean opened his mouth to volunteer, but Lyra cut him off. It has to be me, Sean. My enhanced abilities give me the best chance of interfacing with their systems and shutting down the barrier. Sean wanted to argue, to protect her, but he knew she was right. Okay, he said, his voice tight. But how do we get you on board? Lyra smiled, a mix of purpose and apprehension in her eyes. Remember that short-range teleporter we borrowed from the research lab? Sean's eyes widened. That's way too risky. We haven't even tested it properly. We don't have a choice, Lyra replied, already preparing the device. Get us as close to the flagship as you can. I'll do the rest. Gritting his teeth, Sean pushed the fighter to its limits, dodging increasingly intense weapons fire as they approached the massive ship. Alarms blared as their shields took hit after hit. Now, Sean! Lyra shouted. Sean brought their ship alongside the flagship, close enough to see the individual weapon emplacements on its hull. Lyra activated the teleporter, and in a flash of light, she vanished from the cockpit. For a moment, Sean felt a crushing sense of loss. Then his combat training kicked in, and he threw the fighter into a series of evasive maneuvers. Consortium ships converged on his position, realizing the threat he posed. Come on, Lyra, Sean muttered, engaging in a desperate dogfight to buy her time. Do what you do best. Inside the consortium flagship, Lyra materialized in a dimly lit corridor. Alarms blared, and she could hear the sound of approaching footsteps. She took a deep breath, centering herself. Okay, Sean, she whispered to herself, drawing strength from the thought of him. Time to put all that combat training to use. As the first group of consortium soldiers rounded the corner, Lyra sprang into action. Her enhanced reflexes and Sean's teachings allowed her to disarm the first two before they could even raise their weapons. She used their momentum against them, sending them crashing into their comrades. With the immediate threat neutralized, Lyra accessed a nearby terminal, interfacing with the ship's systems to locate the control room. As she absorbed the information, her eyes widened. Oh no, she breathed, realizing the true extent of the challenge before her. The control room was at the heart of the ship, protected by layers of security and elite guards. And waiting there was someone, or something, far more dangerous than she had anticipated. Lyra steeled herself for what lay ahead. She had to succeed, not just for Sean, not just for their alliance, but for the fate of the entire galaxy. With persistence in her heart, she set off deeper into the bowels of the enemy flagship, ready to face whatever challenges awaited her. Outside, the space around Nuta had become a chaotic battlefield. Sean's fighter danced through the carnage, drawing fire and creating openings for the combined human-Iconian fleet to exploit. But as skilled as he was, the sheer number of enemy ships was overwhelming. Just as it seemed he might be overwhelmed, a familiar voice crackled over his comms. Fancy flying, son, Commander Zorn said. Thought you could use some backup. A squadron of fighters, a mix of human and Iconian designs, fell into formation around Sean's ship. Among them, he recognized Colonel Braxton's distinctive vessel. Glad to have you with us, Sean replied, relief evident in his voice. We need to keep the consortium forces occupied while Lyra completes her mission inside the flagship. Understood, Braxton's gravelly voice responded. Let's show these consortium bastards what a real alliance can do. As the battle raged on, Sean's thoughts kept returning to Lyra. He could sense her willpower, her struggle, through the deep bond they shared. Whatever she was facing inside that ship, he knew it was far more dangerous than anything out here. Hold on, Lyra, he whispered, pushing his fighter into another death-defying maneuver. I'm coming for you. Just hold on. On. As Sean's fighter weaved through the chaos of battle, a burst of weapons fire clipped his wing, sending the ship into a spiral. He gritted his teeth, fighting to regain control as the cockpit filled with warning alarms. Just as he steadied the craft, a massive explosion rocked the space around him. The consortium flagship's shields flickered, revealing a momentary weakness. Sean's heart leaped. Lyra had done it. She had found a way to disrupt their defenses. "All fighters, focus fire on that weak point," Sean shouted into his comm. The combined human Iconian fleet responded, concentrating their assault on the exposed section of the flagship's hull. But the victory was short-lived. The flagship's shield snapped back into place, stronger than ever. Sean's sensors lit up with new warnings as the consortium fleet regrouped, pressing their advantage against the outnumbered alliance. Inside the consortium flagship, Lyra fought her own battle. She had made it to the central control room, but the alien technology resisted her attempts to shut it down. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she interfaced with the ship's systems, her enhanced abilities pushed to their limits. Suddenly, she felt a familiar presence nearby, Sean. He had somehow made it aboard the flagship and was fighting his way towards her. Their emotional connection, forged through shared struggles and intimate moments, gave her a surge of strength. Lyra made a split-second decision. She fully merged her consciousness with the ship's systems, diving deeper than she ever had before. The alien code swirled around her, a vast ocean of data that threatened to drown her. But she pushed on, drawing upon Sean's perseverance and resilience. Outside, the battle took a dire turn. The human Iconian fleet was taking heavy losses, their united front barely holding against the superior consortium forces. Commander Zorn's voice crackled over the comms, strained but resolute. "We can't hold them off much longer," he said. "We need a miracle." As if in answer, a new voice joined the channel. "This is Astra. I have a plan, but it's risky." "At this point, we'll take any risk," Colonel Braxton replied. Astra outlined her strategy, a daring maneuver to create a temporary corridor through the consortium's defenses. It would allow a small strike team to board the flagship and support Sean and Lyra's efforts. "I'll lead the team," a familiar voice volunteered. It was Zarek, the Iconian who had once betrayed them, but now sought redemption. As the plan was set in motion, Sean fought his way through the flagship's corridors. Elite consortium guards swarmed him, their advanced weaponry pushing him to his limits. Just as he was about to be overwhelmed, a nearby bulkhead exploded. Zarak emerged from the smoke, leading a mixed team of human and Iconian soldiers. "Thought you could use some help," he said, tossing Sean a spare weapon. Together, they pushed through the last of the consortium's internal defenses. Sean's heart raced as they approached the control room. He could feel Lyra's presence, her mind stretched to its breaking point as she grappled with the ship's systems. The doors to the control room slid open, revealing a scene that took Sean's breath away. Lyra floated in the center of the room, her body glowing with ethereal energy. Her eyes were closed, her face a mask of concentration as streams of data flowed around her. Sean rushed to her side, reaching out to touch her. A jolt of energy surged through him, and he saw flashes of the vast network Lyra was navigating. He realized with growing horror that she was losing herself in the system. "Lyra," he called, his voice cracking. "Lyra, come back to me." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused and distant. "Sean," she whispered, "I need more time. I'm so close to shutting it all down." Sean looked around desperately. Zarek and his team were holding off waves of consortium reinforcements at the entrance to the control room. They didn't have much time. His eyes fell on a nearby medical console. An idea formed. Crazy, dangerous, but possibly their only chance. Sean dragged the console closer and began connecting neural interfaces to his temples. "What are you doing?" Zarek shouted over the sound of weapons fire. "Joining her," Sean replied. "We'll do this together." He activated the connection and suddenly he was there with Lyra, swimming in the vast sea of consortium data. Their minds touched, merged, became one. Memories and emotions flowed between them, deepening their bond beyond anything they had experienced before. Together, they worked at superhuman speed, decoding and manipulating the alien technology. Sean felt Lyra's fatigue, her pain, and took on as much of the burden as he could. Their shared consciousness raced through the ship's systems, initiating cascading failures throughout the consortium fleet. Outside, the tide of battle suddenly shifted. Consortium ships began to drift, their weapons and shields failing. Commander Zorn seized the opportunity, leading a final assault that targeted key vessels and forced the remaining consortium ships to surrender. But as victory seemed within reach, Sean and Lyra encountered a final, deadly obstacle. A fail-safe protocol activated within the flagship, threatening to overload its power core and destroy everything in the vicinity. They realized with grim certainty what they had to do. They would have to remain connected to the ship's systems, manually preventing the detonation for as long as they could. It would mean certain death, but it would save countless lives. As the power core reached critical levels, Sean and Lyra shared a final, intense moment of connection. Their minds and hearts fully entwined, they prepared for what seemed to be their ultimate sacrifice. But Zarek, witnessing their selfless act, refused to accept it. He pushed past the strike team and began working furiously at a nearby console, his fingers flying over the alien controls. "What are you doing?" one of the human soldiers shouted. "Trying to save them," Zarek replied through gritted teeth. "I won't let them die for my people's mistakes." As alarms blared and the ship began to break apart around them, Zarek fought to disengage Sean and Lyra's neural links without triggering the failsafe. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as he worked, the fate of two worlds hanging in the balance. With seconds to spare, Zarek let out a triumphant cry. Sean and Lyra's bodies went limp, disconnected from the ship's systems, but also unresponsive. The failsafe protocol aborted, but the danger was just the beginning. "We need to move now," Zarek shouted, scooping up Lyra's unconscious form. Another soldier hefted Sean over his shoulder, and they sprinted for the extraction point. The flagship was coming apart around them, explosions rocking the corridors as they ran. They reached the teleportation chamber just as a massive tremor shook the ship. Zarek frantically input the coordinates for a nearby human vessel. As the teleportation sequence initiated, Zarek looked down at the unconscious forms of Sean and Lyra. Their faces were pale, their breathing shallow. He silently vowed to do whatever it took to save them, to ensure their sacrifice was not in vain. The world dissolved in a flash of blue light, and the last thing Zarek saw was the control room erupting in flames. Then they were gone, leaving the consortium flagship to its fate. Fate. The blue light faded, and Zarek found himself on the deck of a human vessel surrounded by startled crew members. The unconscious forms of Sean and Lyra lay at his feet, their bodies eerily still. "Medical team to the teleportation deck now," shouted the ship's captain, her voice cutting through the chaos of the moment. As the medical team rushed in, Zarek stepped back, his eyes never leaving the two heroes who had sacrificed everything to save both their peoples. He watched as they were quickly transferred to medical pods, their vital signs weak but stable. The ship shuddered as the consortium flagship exploded behind them, a final testament to the scale of their victory. But Zarek knew the real battle was just beginning, the fight to save Sean and Lyra's lives. The following weeks were a blur of activity as the united human and Iconian forces began the monumental task of dismantling the remaining consortium influence across the galaxy. Ships of both species worked in tandem, sharing intelligence and resources as they uncovered and neutralized hidden consortium cells and technology. On Nuta, now transformed into a symbol of interspecies cooperation, Sean and Lyra lay in state-of-the-art medical pods. The once neutral trading post had become the center of a flurry of scientific activity as human and Iconian researchers worked tirelessly to understand and treat the couple's unique condition. Astra, her wrinkled face etched with lines of worry and purpose, oversaw their care personally. Despite her advanced age, she moved with purpose, coordinating teams of scientists and monitoring every fluctuation in Sean and Lyra's vital signs. "Their neural patterns are like nothing I've ever seen," muttered Dr. Callens, a human neuroscientist, as he studied the readouts from their brain scans. Astra nodded, her eyes never leaving the monitors. The merging of their consciousness with the consortium systems has created an unprecedented connection between their minds. We're in uncharted territory here. Days turned into weeks as the research team worked around the clock, combining human intuition with Iconian analytical prowess. They developed new theories, tested countless treatments, and pushed the boundaries of both species' medical knowledge. Finally, after a month of intense work, there was a breakthrough. A combination of Iconian bioneural therapy and human cognitive recalibration techniques showed promising results in stabilizing Sean and Lyra's neural patterns. As the medical team prepared to wake them, tension filled the air. Commander Zorn and Colonel Braxton stood at the ready, their earlier rivalry forgotten in the face of this shared vigil. The pods hissed open, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then Sean's eyes fluttered open, followed almost immediately by Lyra's. Their gazes locked, and without a word, their hands reached out, fingers intertwining. The medical team burst into action, running scans and checks, but Sean and Lyra seemed oblivious to the commotion around them. They stared at each other, expressions shifting rapidly, as if engaged in a silent conversation. "Incredible," Astra breathed, watching the readouts on her datapad. "Their neural patterns are perfectly synchronized. They're communicating telepathically." The news of Sean and Lyra's awakening spread rapidly, igniting celebrations across human and Iconian worlds alike. Their unique connection became a symbol of hope, living proof that their two species could not only coexist, but form deep, meaningful bonds. As Sean and Lyra regained their strength, they found themselves at the center of the ongoing peace negotiations. Their shared experiences and telepathic link allowed them to bridge cultural gaps that had long seemed insurmountable. During one particularly tense meeting between human and Iconian diplomats, Sean and Lyra's ability to communicate without words proved invaluable. As the diplomats argued over resource allocation, Sean noticed Lyra's subtle change in posture. "The Iconians are worried about losing access to the Delphic expanse," Sean said aloud, translating Lyra's unspoken thoughts. "They believe it's crucial for their long-term survival." The human diplomats paused, surprised by this insight. Lyra nodded, adding verbally, "And the humans fear that unrestricted access could lead to military buildups." Their intervention broke the deadlock, leading to a compromise that satisfied both sides. This scene played out repeatedly in the following months, with Sean and Lyra's unique perspective smoothing over countless potential conflicts. As the newly formed Galactic Cooperative Council took shape, Astra found herself appointed as lead scientific advisor. Her role in exposing the consortium and saving both species had earned her the respect and trust of humans and Iconians alike. Months after the final battle, Nuta had been transformed. The once neutral trading post now housed the headquarters of the Galactic Cooperative Council, its architecture a blend of human and Iconian design. On a clear, star-filled evening, Sean and Lyra stood before a massive crowd gathered in the central plaza. Sean wore a new uniform that combined elements of both human and Iconian military attire, while Lyra's clothing shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. As Sean began to speak, his words carried across the assembly, translated instantly for both human and Iconian ears. "Today we stand united not as separate species, but as fellow sentients committed to a peaceful and prosperous future." Lyra's voice joined his, both aloud and through their mental link, her words seamlessly continuing Sean's thought. "Our victory over the consortium has shown us that our greatest strength lies in our diversity and our willingness to understand one another." The crowd erupted in cheers, a cacophony of human voices and Iconian harmonics blending into a single, joyous sound. Commander Zorn and Colonel Braxton, now close friends and co-leaders of a joint peacekeeping force, stood proudly behind the couple, their postures mirroring each other. As the ceremony concluded, Sean and Lyra made their way through the crowd, greeting both humans and Iconians with equal warmth. They paused to embrace Astra, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears of joy. "You did it," Astra said, her voice thick with emotion. "You brought us together." Sean smiled, squeezing her frail hand. "We all did it, Astra. You started this journey when you trusted a human soldier with your life. Lyra nodded, adding, and now, thanks to you, we have a chance at a future none of us could have imagined. As night fell, Sean and Lyra found themselves alone on a balcony overlooking the spaceport. Ships of both human and Iconian design moved peacefully through the star-studded sky, their running lights tracing patterns of cooperation and shared purpose. Sean turned to Lyra, taking both her hands in his. Their minds touched, sharing a wordless moment of reflection on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. Lyra smiled, her alien features softened by the starlight. Who would have thought a human and an Iconian could change the course of galactic history, she said, both aloud and through their mental link. Sean chuckled, pulling her close. I'm just glad we get to see what comes next, he replied, his thoughts echoing his words. As they leaned in to share a tender kiss, their minds and hearts in perfect sync, the scene around them seemed to pulse with potential. Nuta shone like a beacon in the vast expanse of space, a testament to what could be achieved when two species chose understanding over conflict. The story of Sean and Lyra, of Astra and Zarek, of humans and Iconians, had become a galaxy-wide tale of unity and hope. And as the couple stood there hand in hand, they knew that their journey, and the journey of their united peoples, was only just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.